Hi, I'm Vincent AYALA, Lead Sales Support Engineer for Barco Inc. We're here today in the Northern California Barco office with Chuck Laszyca, Director of Engineering at Nationwide Video.
Hi, Vince.
Hey, Chuck. To talk to you about the EX. You know, we kind of jump in, ask some questions, you know, talk about the feature set,
Sure.
answer anything you want to do.
It's been a very popular box for us, but I would imagine most of our customers are using it for its I/O capabilities, and I want to know what else this box can do.
Okay.
Do you have, what's the story behind it? Why did you develop it?
So, the EX box comes as an answer to a problem that we saw kind of early on. You know, early on we saw people, when they wanted to add just a little bit more input or output expansion or capacity.
Everybody is at that point where they run out.
Yeah,
right? Yep.
You get to that point where you just need a little bit more. Right? So what we offered initially was the ability to link boxes, right? So if you had an E2, you could link an E2 to an E2. If you had an S3, you could link an S3 to an S3.
But I'm tying up a whole another system just for a little bit more I/O. Actually, a system that could be on another project potentially.
Exactly, making some more money somewhere else,
Right.
or being utilized somewhere else. So we said, okay, you know what? We can do better than that. We can set out, we can make a 1RU box that has input and output capability. Right. In fact, it has input and input capability as well, or output and output, depending on how you want to configure the cards. So you're not just locked to input and output.
Is there a restriction on the cards that can be used in it?
No restriction. It could be Gen 1, could be Gen 2. You can even use VPU cards, which we'll talk about a little bit later on.
All right.
But basically, you know, the restriction lies with kind of the link's worth of HD that you can have, okay? So to connect this EX box to an E2 or an S3 or master system, you're going to use that 1 meter CXP data connector that you see that gets sold with every unit. Right?
Okay, so I notice there's two connections, but you just need one?
Correct, yeah. For input-output expansion, you only need the one connector.
All right.
Now, with that said, there is a limitation on that one connector, right? Which is basically 8 HD links in and 8 HD links out. So you can take one EX processor, hook it up with your CXP copper, and you can have maybe 2 4K in, 2 4K out, or 6 HD in, 6 HD out if you have it populated with tri-combo cards.
Okay.
You can even take that a step further, plug your main EX in, and then take a secondary EX and link it through, right? So you can do kind of a daisy chain.
So you can cascade them. Okay.
Yeah, cascade them, right. So for every port on an E2 or S3, you can have 2 EXs connected to that.
Okay, so what is the maximum number of inputs and outputs we can actually add to an E2 or an S3?
16 inputs and outputs on an S3, or 32 inputs and outputs on an E2. And the reason we do that is because we can go, you know, on an S3. Let's say we have the 2 ports. It's 16. It's 8 on the top, 8 on the bottom port. If you had an E2, you have the 4 ports, so 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. Right. So 8 in, 8 out per port. And that's the limitation of the CXP data connector.
So in addition to having that extra I/O, do I also gain canvas space and additional layers?
Well, not when you're using input-output cards. Okay. So with the input-output, there's no canvas space or layers that are gained. But what we can do is you can slide in a VPU card. Now, you'll notice that this is the same VPU card that's inside of an E2. Usually you don't see it because they're internal, right? But on an S3, we mount them externally, and we basically just add a sled to that VPU card that allows you to mount it externally inside of the unit.
Okay.
Now, you can take the VPU card from the S3 out, or you can purchase a new one, and you can actually slide it into an EX, and that could potentially give us more layers or more canvas space.
Okay.
So when you add a VPU card, you know, it adds a bank worth of processing, which is essentially 10 more megapixels worth of canvas space or 4 more HD layers.
Right, and it's up to you how you want to configure it and use it.
Exactly,
Got it.
exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, we can definitely add more canvas space. Kind of one of the watch outs though, one of the things to look out for is that when you do add a VPU, if you add 1 or even if you add 2, you do have to connect 2 CXP data connectors to it.
Ah, okay, for the increased bandwidth that's required.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. So, you know, take that a step further, right? If you have an S3 that you're connecting an EX with VPUs to, you can only have 1 EX connected.
Okay.
If you connect it to an E2, you can have 2 EXs connected.
Yeah.
Now, when you have those EXs connected with a VPU card, you can either use multiple VPU cards, or you can even do a VPU card and an input card, or a VPU card and an
No
output
restriction on
card.
the combinations.
Right, yeah, you're kind of, it's completely versatile, right? As long as it can fit in, it'll work.
So I noticed that EX is short for expansion. Is it also short for extension?
It certainly is. Normally, we see people use it with the 1 meter copper that came with the units, right?
So it's going to be in the same rack
Right.
with an E2 or an S3.
Right next to it and within close proximity. We
Okay.
understand that, right? Well, if you want to add a little bit more length, you want to get away from the main box, we actually have,
This one?
we have a 5 meter copper solution.
Got it.
So that'll get you, away from the box.
Okay. So I have these mounted in a rack that's like next to my main rack. I can extend to that.
Yeah, certainly, absolutely, right? And then we can take that one step further if you really want to get crazy with it, and we have a fiber solution. So here we have our fiber solution, where we have our transceivers, which are basically the CXP copper connector heads that kind of turn it into fiber, not kind of, but they turn it into fiber, right? And you slide that into the EX and then one back to the master, and they're linked with the fiber. So here we have our install grade fiber. We actually sell this in various lengths. And here we have our tactical, also known as our ruggedized solution, also various lengths. And then, new for this year, we have qualified what we call our 300 meter version. So here are the 300 meter transceivers. And you can tell that they're the 300 meters because they're a little bit longer and they have an orange tab on it as opposed to the original black tabs. And that'll allow you to reach out to 300 meters. Same cable, just longer, different transceivers.
Got it.
Right? And that'll, and again, that should be out by the end of 2018.
Okay. So regardless of how far I extend it, it still needs to be on the same network. So I'm good with like 100 meters of Cat5, but when I go 300, I still need to use media converters for my data, or maybe like a switch to boost it.
Yeah, you could do those things as well.
Okay.
We're also working on, and will be ratified by early to middle of next year, by middle of 19, is the ability to send that data over the CXP data connectors. So we're relieving you of having to use that Ethernet cable.
One cable.
One cable solution, direct to your EX, total control.
That's ideal. So potentially with the EX being extended, I can see it maybe going out to a second video village if I'm doing an exceptionally large show for share and I/O between. Maybe to a breakout room possibly, or a SAT truck or a production truck.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a video snake.
Right, totally.
Got
And
it.
in fact, if you wouldn't mind, I'll indulge that a little bit further, and we'll talk about, we'll use the SAT truck example.
All right.
So we can run out, we could say, keep our E2 S3 at Video Village, and then we can run out the fiber to an EX that's maybe sitting on a SAT truck. Maybe we'll throw some HDSDI in, throw some HDSDI out for some send and receive runs. And we could even take it a step further. We could start talking about reference. So we can actually take reference in from the SAT truck and send that reference back to our E2 or S3 and utilize that to lock our entire system, to genlock our entire system.
Wow, great way to distribute reference through the whole production environment.
Yep, it can actually also generate genlock, right? It can generate reference signal. So we can take this, push it out to the SAT truck. If the SAT truck can accept the genlock, we can generate it from the out of the EX. Very similar to the way that the Image Pro 4K creates reference signal.
Now, does it need to be connected to an E2 and S3 for that functionality?
It doesn't. You can actually have it as like a standalone reference generator, where it just sits and creates your genlock for your show.
Okay.
But since we're talking about it in standalone mode, that's a pretty good segue on to our next topic.
But
which
wait,
is,
there's more.
Yeah, exactly. Where we can take, an EX, and we can place an input card and an output card inside of it, and use it as a scaling matrix router. Right.
Wow, okay.
So we'll hook up a VintMaster toolset to it, and we can do like 6 HD ins, 6 HD outs, or 2 4K in, 2 4K out scaling matrix router.
Wow.
So
That's really powerful.
Yeah, totally. And you can imagine having all of the same features that you would have connected to a normal box, right? Where you have programmable EDIDs, custom output formats.
You're controlling it all with the tool set.
Controlling it all with tool set, right? So what you have essentially here is a smart router, right? A super smart router. It'll give you indication of input signal or output signal, the whole deal, right? Now, take it one more step. We can actually link EXs together in standalone mode, so they're not quite standalone, but they still are, right? So take another EX, slap it on top, or maybe even extend it out with a piece of fiber or a 25-meter, CXP connector. Put some more input and output on that, and you have a what equates to like a 12 by 12 HD or a 4 by 4 4K scaling matrix router.
Wow.
So another layer of value added to this.
Right. And again, no restriction on the cards that can be used. Right?
Correct. Yep, no restriction on the cards.
Wow, fantastic. So I can expand my I/O. I can add pixel space. I can extend it to far off locations. I can generate genlock with it. What configuration is it available for purchase?
So it originally shipped when it launched last year, basically with an empty configuration. You didn't have any cards included with it.
Okay.
But we've recently launched a version that has a tri-combo input, tri-combo output installed.
So a couple Gen 2 cards.
Yep, a couple Gen 2 cards. We call that the tri-combo version. Now, the advantage to that tri-combo version is when you buy it all in a package, you get a bit of a price break on the cards or on the whole package, as opposed to purchasing them separately for full MSRP, right? You get a nice clean break from that.
So you've got the Gen 2 cards in a new EX that you can actually move into your existing E2 or S3 and give that an upgrade, and your Gen 1 cards still stay relevant in your EX, however you want to utilize them.
Yeah, or you can mix and match, right? Leave one in here, put one in there, whichever way you like.
Well, that sounds great, Vince. How do people get their hands on one?
Well, if you plan to purchase, you can reach out to your Barco Regional Sales Manager, or if you plan to rent,
contact any one of the nationwide video locations in United States or Canada.
All right, Chuck. Well, thank you very much for coming out. I
Thanks
appreciate
for having
it. Yeah, if you have any other questions, reach out to us at e2@barco.com or
nationwidevideo.com.
That's right.